What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. This is part 2 of the BavSound install on Drew's E90 335i, and in today's video we are going to be installing these 8-inch Ghost Underseat Subwoofers. Here's one for the driver's side and one for the passenger side. If you guys didn't check out the first video in the series, definitely go take a look. We changed out the speakers in Drew's 335i. We replaced the terrible bass system that was in the car, and actually one of the rear deck speakers was completely broken. The magnet was totally broken off of it, so that's probably a good indication as to why it sounded so bad. But I think it's going to be really, really great with the new system, and it'll be even better with the new Ghost subs. So once we get these installed, we'll take a listen and see how much it improved. I'm anticipating it to be really, really, really awesome. Alright, here's another look before we pull out the old ones and replace the new ones. These are the 4 ohm V2 version on BavSound's website. So we're going to start here on the driver's side first. I've already pushed the seat back as far as it'll go, pretty much. And you can kind of see underneath here, this is where the current subwoofer is, the OEM sub. So what we need to do is actually, we're going to tilt the seat back. We're not going to completely remove the seat because it's pretty heavy. But we also don't want to have to unplug everything. But what we're going to do is take this T50 and we're going to unscrew 1, 2, and then on the back 1, 2. So 4 of these bolts, and that will allow us to tilt the seat back into the rear. And so start here, front. There's one screw. There's a little bit of thread locker on that, so just be careful putting it on the carpet. Alright, here's number 2. Alright, now I've put the seat forward all the way, and I have now exposed the rear. I'll move these two. And finally, number 4. Now we can actually scoot this seat back and tilt the entire thing into the back seat. There we go. It's kind of doing it on its own. Now we have access underneath here, and we're gonna take a Phillips screwdriver and unscrew all of these screws. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and unscrew all these Phillips heads. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in total to remove this cover here. Finally, I have all 6 of those unscrewed. Now I can just pick this cover up and pull it out of the car. As you can see, it's pretty dirty in here. So the only thing now, this subwoofer that's currently in here is sitting inside of basically like a plastic tub. We don't need to completely remove the plastic tub. BavSound has a couple instructional videos that show them actually pulling the whole thing out. We don't really need to do that. It's kind of unnecessary in my mind. With my M3 I didn't have to do it, so this is kind of the same thing. So what we need to do here is actually pull this carpet back. And it should expose a couple screws, which I'll show you here in a minute. So actually the 335 is a little bit different than my M3. So my M3 actually had screws that held the subwoofer in there. So depending on, I guess, what system you have in your car, you may or may not have screws. This one actually has little plastic clips that hold this in. So if you see, I'm going to show you, if you see this corner here where the screwdriver is, that's basically a plastic clip that's holding that in. So there's a few of those that kind of go around the whole thing. Additionally, you'll see the plug here, so you just want to go ahead and unplug that. So the plug has a little tab on the back side that you need to kind of push in. I'll show you when I get it out. So here's the plug that I was referring to. So I went ahead and took a small, tiny flathead screwdriver, and you kind of just need to bend this down a little bit. See how it's kind of moving? Once you move this out of the way and pull up, it'll actually release. As I said before, I don't think it's totally necessary to pull this entire thing out, but just to make my life a little bit easier, because these tabs are kind of hard and this is a confined spot, I'm actually going to remove the entire tray and everything with the speaker. So if you look behind the carpet, you'll see right there's a nut. That is a 10mm nut. There's one there, there's one over here, and I think that should pull this whole thing out. Yeah, so it's just those two little nuts that I had to remove. I also took this little trim piece off just to give myself some more room and be able to pull this carpet back more. So now I can actually pull this whole tray out of here. So getting it back in, it might be a little bit tricky, but I've already got this unplugged. Okay. There's like a weather seal on the bottom here, so there we go. Just make sure you don't lose the back of this. This is like the weather seal. And now you can see, got the whole thing out of there, and here's the hole that I was referring to. So this will actually go to the very bottom underneath the car, so don't lose the weather strip. And here is our wire. So here's what the OEM one looks like out of the car with the tray and everything. And so what we need to do now is to remove this part. You can see, like I mentioned before, there's a tab here and there's a tab here. So we need to kind of push those both apart at the same time, and this whole thing should pop out of here because we need to reuse this tray. All right guys, so fast forward a couple days. So we left off with the subwoofer on the driver's side. After some research, I found out that there is actually no way to remove the stock sub out of the actual enclosure itself, because this is a base system and BMW actually glues the speaker into the enclosure. So there really is no way for me to actually take it out of there without damaging a bunch of stuff. Nearly impossible to do. So what we had to do is order some parts on eBay. Fortunately, we found the exact parts that we need. It's basically a hi-fi version or a Harman Kardon version. I'm not even sure which it is, but we were only using the enclosure. It also happened to come with the subwoofer, the OEM subwoofer for whatever car it came out of, but we aren't utilizing that part. We're just using the subwoofer enclosure. I'll show you guys the differences here if you guys want to take a look. All right, so here's what I'm talking about. This is the OEM one that we just took out of Drew's car. I was hoping that by separating these tabs, one on each side, that we would actually be able to pull this whole thing out. That is not the case, unfortunately. Like I said, this is glued in, so went onto eBay and found some replacement parts. This is out of an E90, so I don't know if this is the hi-fi version or the Harman Kardon out of an E90, but it doesn't matter because we're not utilizing this subwoofer anyway. We're basically just using the enclosure. So as you can see, the sub enclosures are basically the same. They look a little bit different, but the sizes are the same. The mounting points are all the same. The only difference here is we're going to be able to pull this one out. We're going to use a couple of Torx bits here and to get these screws out, and then this whole sub should pop right out of the enclosure, and we can pop this back into the car. So I've got one for the driver's side as well as the passenger side. So now we're back in business. The sub enclosure in my M3 looked more like this, so we only had a couple screws to remove. Again, it should be pretty simple at this point. This is a T20, so go ahead and remove all 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. And we are going to be utilizing these screws again with the new sub, so do not lose these. Put those aside. All right, so now that we've got those out, we can go ahead and actually lift the subwoofer out of here. So I'm just gonna grab it and pull straight up, and it should come right out relatively easily. All right, there we go. So utilizing this. So as you can see, this actually came out of an E90 335i, but the sub enclosures are very much the same for a bunch of different models. So it doesn't really matter as long as it's for an E90 3 series, you should be good to go. So we can go ahead and drop the new one in. This is what the new one looks like. So the mounting point should be the same. Sure enough, all the holes line up, so we're good to go there. Go ahead and put your screws back in. These don't need to be super tight. You are screwing it into plastic, so as long as it's snug and not going anywhere, you should be fine. Before we drop this back into the car, you just want to make sure you still have this little rubber gasket here on the bottom. This is going to create a tighter seal, so don't lose that, and then we can go ahead and drop this back in. As you can see, I've got the subwoofer back into place. The hardest part is just kind of navigating it through and underneath the carpet, so it's easier to put this side in first. Slide it in this way and then push down. And then, once again, make sure you have your, let's see if you can see that. Make sure the screw that's already mounted to the car comes through both mounting points, one there one on that side, which you probably can't see very well, right there. So once you get this in, you can kind of feel the gasket go into place that's underneath the sub enclosure. So as long as you have that in there, you should be good to go. At this point, we can go ahead and wire this up and also go ahead and put our 10mm nuts back in these to secure the enclosure down. So I went ahead and put the nuts back on, one there, one there. Went ahead and plugged it in. The harness right here, you can see it only goes in one way, so pretty simple. Plugs in, and then you just kind of want to tuck the wire back there because it is a little bit longer. Tuck it in so it's out of the way, and then we can go ahead and reinstall the actual cover. Okay, so did a nice little vacuum in here to get all the crap out of here. Went ahead and put this cover back on just with a couple of these Phillips screws. Now we're good to go, everything's plugged in. We can go ahead and put the seat back down and screw it back in. As you can see, we've got our seat back into place, everything's tightened down. Used a T50 Torx, and we should be good to go. So this whole driver's side is now complete. And one more thing, if you are like me and you pulled this trim piece off just to give you some more access to the carpet, pretty simple to reinstall. Sometimes these clips come out of this little piece and they get stuck here on the actual car, so you just need to pull those off and then reinsert them here and then go ahead and line it up and put it back on. So pretty simple. All right guys, that wraps up the driver's side Ghost Underseat Subwoofer. The passenger side is going to be the exact same way. So same thing, I've got the new sub enclosure over there, so we just need to swap those out and everything should be plug and play after that. So I'll check back in with you guys when I'm finished and we can do a little test and see how it sounds. All right guys, I finally finished up the passenger side. We've got both of the underseat subwoofers in as well as all 4 speakers, so we should be good to go. We're gonna go ahead and test this for the very first time. I'm gonna play some no copyright music just so we don't get any infringement, and let's take a listen. Good. So everything works. That means we did a good job on the install. Everything was very simple to do, and I know it's kind of hard to tell the audio quality on camera, but I assure you it's a lot better than it used to be. The most kick in the pants is the subwoofers by far. I mean, you can actually feel it in your seat now, whereas before they were very, very weak. And BavSound does state that it does take about 12 hours of playtime in order for those subwoofers to actually kind of break in. So I think it's actually going to get better over time. In my experience with my M3, I can already tell you I haven't even hit the 12-hour mark yet, and it already sounds a lot better than it did when I first installed it. So I think Drew's really going to like this. It's a very simple install. Obviously, having an amplifier would really, really help, but this is miles better than it used to be, so I think he's going to be happy. I haven't even played around with the audio settings here in the head unit yet, so I'm sure I can do some little fine tweaking as the system kind of breaks in a little bit more, but super excited. I think he's going to really enjoy it. I hope you guys enjoyed the install. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns about anything that we've done in Drew's E90, please let me know. Otherwise, we will see you guys on the next video. Stay tuned. I have a full BavSound series coming up on my F30 335i, so stay tuned for that. We'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Take care.